Welcome. My name is Marie Hyman. I'm from California. I booked this whole trip, and then I found out they're doing a West Coast one, so we went there too in San Diego. It was really fun. Much smaller than this, though. It was the first one there. So I am the founder of Learn Beyond the Book. It's a homeschool resource center is what I always used to call it. Now it has many names. It's a hybrid school, it's a micro school, it's a pod. It's like, you could call it all different things. Um, so I was gonna share with you like some of my journey and some of the things that I've kind of learned along the way, the hard way. Because when I started in 2012, none of the these Yes Every Kid Foundation, all of those people didn't exist. And so we kind of like chipped it away, trying to figure it out on our own. So, okay. This is my why. These are my kids. They're all grown now. They used to be young and small, and these older two, they homeschooled. Well, we homeschooled all of them the whole time. But when they were in high school, all their friends went off to public school, and they had almost no friends. And I was like, okay, this needs to be fixed because my daughter was extremely social, and so I was like, I better start something now because if you start it in high school, it's a little more difficult because they're very much like, where's my friends already? So the younger two used it a lot. They used to come to Learn Beyond the Book with me, and my daughter actually worked at the front desk when she was older for a while. This son, Johnny, he's taught a lot of classes. He actually started teaching right when we started, and he was like 15 and a half, but he was really into technology. So he taught all the younger kids all about computers, took it apart and all this stuff. So it was like a family affair to get it going. But now he's moved away, so he's not around, and my daughter's traveling all the time, so she's not working there either. Hopefully one day they'll come back with their grandkids. So, so homeschool co-ops, pods, micro schools, resource learning centers, it's so many words, right? There's so many terms. Like yesterday, we went on a tour of the local micro schools, a few of them, and the bus driver asked us, "What's a micro school?" Because he just kept hearing us use the word. So the one woman was trying to explain it to him, but even she was like, "Man, it's like kind of hard to explain because there's so many different kinds." So it's kind of, I'm going to go through slides that have a lot of print because I would love to send it to you and you could just have it all, but it's kind of like easy for me to follow along too. I want to talk about what are the problems we're trying to solve with all these things. Of course, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because I think many of you are already running some programs, but some of you are starting out. Why do we even do it? And the similarities and differences and pros and cons of these things. Homeschool, hybrid school co-ops, hybrid resource learning centers, pods and micro schools. So the pods and micro schools are kind of newer terms that came kind of after the pandemic. And those kind of can fall in either of those two things. It could either be a co-op kind of situation or it could be a resource center, which normally is not a co-op, which I'll explain the difference between those two things in a second. So what's the problem? Why are we even doing any of this? Traditional public schools. Oh, that looks kind of small. Classroom sizes are huge, as you know, 30 people often in a class. That's very hard to get to everybody. Individualized student needs are neglected because how can you possibly attend to everybody? Teachers' hands are tied when they're trying new things. That's the problem. It's like they're sometimes trying to innovate, but it's really, they have to follow, but the school wants them to follow so that they can get good grades on the tests, because otherwise the school looks bad. They're focused more on the test scores, like I said, rather than long-term learning. No student input usually leads to no motivation. Like this is, in traditional school, there's not really, the student doesn't get to say a whole lot, except the answers to the questions that are asked. It's a stressful environment for learning. There's, as you know, increased violence and school shootings all the time, so people are very scared of that. Increased bullying, unfortunately. Hi, come on in. We're just going over what's the problem, what are we trying to solve here. We have curriculum that's not geared towards critical thinking or questioning. just blind obedience, kind of just like follow along and don't ask too many questions. That's the biggest thing. All the way through elementary and sometimes middle school, one teacher teaches everything, whether they like it or not. Like, I mean, some people really don't like math, and then they end up having to teach it anyway. And the kids, it spills over to them. It's obvious. They are all one size fits all. But no, but that's not true, right? We all know that. Despite some great teachers and systems, the system is broken. It's only serving a very small number of people. If you look at learning styles, there's just the tiniest amount of people that are really served by the public school system, the way that they learn, that they are expected to learn. So people turn to private schools. You know, they used to. That was the only alternative, which then often is kind of more of the same. It's like the same kind of busy work, but it's just now you have to pay for it, and it's rigorous. So it's like, you know, meant to sound impressive, and you're paying so much money for it, it better be impressive. But maybe they do well on tests, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the kids are having any more of a enjoyable, fulfilling time. So we're the question that I keep on asking is, are we really interested in changing this system? Because to change that system, I always think of it as an enormous, big monster. I always think of that dragon in Shrek. And you have the tiny little leash around its neck, and you're trying to turn it around, going the other way. And that's very difficult to do, unless you have a lot of insiders that are going to start saying, like, we don't want this anymore. But what we're trying to do is doing something completely outside of that system, right? Because otherwise, how are you going to affect anything? But we're so used to school in everything. Like, we have it in our movies, we have it in shows on TV. It's like such a normal thing. And if you're not going to school, you're kind of weird. People think of you kind of weird. So they're like, where are you going? What are you doing? It's getting less like that now, I'm very happy to say. But it's still a little bit there. So we have to have a paradigm shift in the whole country and the whole world to think of learning as something that could potentially be fun and interesting, and that they actually would remember it better if it wasn't painful. But I feel like we, in the society, we kind of are used to that feeling of like, well, if it's not painful and unpleasant, you're not actually learning. And it's like, no, that's not true, you know? Like, I mean, that's at least how my school was. I forgot to say, I grew up in South Africa. And so there, the school system was very militaristic when I was growing up. And it was quite enlightening when I moved here and I met some homeschoolers, and I was just like, what? You can have fun? These kids were just, I mean, they were like reciting poetry for fun. I was like, what? This is amazing. This is so different from what we used to. And the kids that then later I realized, they were pretty unusual kids. They were interested in things like all homeschoolers or alternative schoolers that's outside of the norm sometimes, you know. I have one of my site managers, her son is actually a magic person. Like, he does magic tricks. And he has a YouTube channel. She says he makes more than her husband, and he works for a really big video game company. And he's just, literally, she unschooled him, and he was doing his magic the whole way through, and now he has a huge career. So it's like such a paradigm shift for people to think that you can actually learn while you're doing things like that. But we kind of, I think, you know, like I said, I'm preaching a little bit to the choir. just reinforcing we are doing a great thing. So the only option is homeschooling or these alternatives. But homeschooling, there's some issues with it that people have. The one thing is the parents have to work. So, you know, what are you going to do with the kids? People worry about socialization and friends for their children, which is the most common thing you hear. Parents don't feel like they're equipped, especially not at all higher levels. They feel anxious about being solely in charge of their students' education, concerned about passing on their own lack of interest or knowledge about a subject. If you hate bugs, you might freak out, you know, when you see any kind of spider or a bug, then you don't want to pass that along necessarily. concerned about isolation for kids and themselves. The parents are often very lonely if they don't have a good support system. They don't want to deal with the society's judgment and prejudice against anything alternative, which is still there. It is getting a little bit better. Concern that kids might feel weird or uneducated and not be able to take part in rites of passage type activities like the prom or the graduation or something. It's kind of like, now that we have so much of that in the homeschool world, it's still, the people who are outside of the homeschool world doesn't know that. And so they're thinking, well, I want my kid to go to school because it was great. I had a great prom. I had graduation. They want them to have that, which makes sense. Concerns about not being sure if the kids are on grade level and progressing at the appropriate, speed and cover the standards. So homeschool, hybrid school co-ops, pods, microschools, resource learning centers, they solve most of these issues because they're an extension of homeschooling, and they actually can sort of answer those questions for people. And a lot of the time I find that parents, and especially often it's the dads, that feel very nervous when their wife's like, I want to homeschool. And they're like, oh. They're just like really thinking, about all these things. But then when they say, oh no, we're going to go to this place, then they feel like, oh, okay, we're good. It's funny. Someone said, it's kind of sad to think that how little the public school trusts the people that came out of public school to teach their own kids. Like, did they not do a good job then? What are they actually saying if you don't actually know it? No, I know. But they're like so concerned, then, yeah, anyway. So I made this slide just to kind of try to determine some of the phrases and words that you hear. Co-ops, and then homeschool resource learning centers or microschools are kind of on the other side. In the middle is the things that they have in common. Children learn from other teachers. That's really an important skill to even eventually learn. Socializing opportunities and homeschool community, and learning group class dynamics. So we often have kids that come to us and you can tell they have never been in a class. They just start speaking whenever they want. They don't really get that there's a whole group that you have to consider. So it's kind of a good thing to learn. But on co-ops, on the side of co-ops, it's usually run by parents or volunteers. And the parents would be the teachers. Parents have to work together in the co-op, and the great thing is it's free or low cost. There's not much. There's mostly material fees. Longevity is not always a high priority because most of the time the people are doing it is they're doing it for their own kids. So they don't really care if it's going to continue after their kids graduate. They're pretty much done then. And it's not always great quality of teaching. Sometimes it's great. I'm not saying it's not always, but since you have to do this for free, then people sometimes don't put as much effort into it. I found at least. But we did have some great co-op teachers. We had a really great time. Like I actually, since you saw my kids there, they had 2 older and then 2 5 years later. So at some point I realized, I'm not going to be able to get to everybody and make sure that they all get what they need. So we started doing homeschool co-ops. So that's how Learn Beyond the Book even started. We ended up growing into a resource center. So on the other side, you have the resource center, and these are the problems that you'll see on the next slide that I want to discuss, like some issues with co-ops. But usually the homeschool resource centers are run by educational entrepreneurs. They have paid subject expert teachers that are carefully vetted, and you have tuition, and because you have to pay those teachers, and the rent and all the things. And then you have parents can drop them off usually. Sometimes they require you to stay. That happens sometimes. But continuity is a high priority because this person is an entrepreneur. So they want to actually continue this so that they eventually, hopefully, get some money out of it so they can eat. So potential pitfalls of co-ops or some pods. Like I'm just going to go through a few things that I found when we were doing co-ops that you might find, and maybe you'll be like, oh, yes. Hopefully not. Personality issues. We go into a co-op usually with a friend that is like, we meet them at the park, their kids and our kids are friends, and we're just like, let's do a co-op. we're going to do Spanish together. That's how we started. And then you started, and then you realize, oh, this person is a little different than what I was thinking. Okay, well, you kind of try to sit it out. But sometimes there's non-obvious worldview differences. Sometimes you didn't know that they really strongly felt one way, and you're like, oh, I strongly feel the other way. And sometimes you can agree to disagree, but sometimes it's not really going to work because you're trying to teach your kids certain values. So how are you going to, pass along what you believe if the person believes the complete opposite thing? Sometimes there are even educational philosophy differences. So they might think, yeah, we should, cater to the learning styles, and the other person might think like, no, they should just learn whatever way we teach. It could be something as simple as that, but there could be more deep-running educational philosophy differences. Friendships often get ruined with co-ops, and that's a sad story, but you do have, like, sometimes with those personality differences, or you find out that, oh, they're actually not exactly at the same place, or sometimes it's just the way that they're doing it. Like they might even agree with you on everything, but you find out that, oh, they teach very different from me, and I don't really want my kids to be learning like that. They're not enjoying it, especially if your kid's not enjoying it. It's like the kid's not happy, the mom's usually not happy. This is something I ran into a lot. One family does a lot more than anybody else, and eventually becomes a slight bit disgruntled and maybe a little resentful, and then they will back away or they just completely leave, and now you have this big hole, and someone's not happy. And then it relies heavily on parent participation and the organization skills of the parent who volunteers to organize these things. So if you have a good person in charge that really likes to do that stuff, then the co-op survives. That used to be me. I actually love scheduling things and making sure everybody's teaching at a good time and everything is just fine. And that's really great because that's a big part of my job now. But some people really don't like it, or they're not good at it just naturally. Like, some people are just more organizational and others are not. So, all right. Now, resource centers and micro schools are a little more organized, and they have like the paid people and so forth. How do they solve those things? Usually it's drop-off, so the parents could have hours. They don't have to work there. In a co-op, you have to do something. It's a cooperative. Everybody has to do something. But now you can just drop the kid off. You can go shop. You can go, do whatever. Sometimes our parents have kids, they have jobs, like part-time jobs, so they drop the kid off for like 2 days, and then those are the days that they go and work. So these are paid professionals that are teaching it. So they're usually very passionate about what they're teaching, which is great, and they put a lot of effort into it because it's their job, They're live scanned and vetted, at least that learned me on the book. Most places that are vendors for any kind of state organizations, ESAs, any of those things, they have to be vetted. They have to be live scanned, background checked. So I think that, if you're looking for a place that definitely looked into the teachers a little bit, then that's usually kind of an indication. Teaching and worldview, their philosophy is more clear. When you're signing up for something, you at least get the taste of the place before you sign up. You could go on the website, you go on Instagram, you go on all the social media things, you could kind of get a feel for what they're like. So if you're shopping around, you might want to go visit the place. We often tell people, just come visit, because you can feel it, you can feel the vibe of the place. And not everybody jives with everybody's vibe. You have to find your tribe. It's like, you have to definitely look around a little. We have the emphasis on educating the whole child and not just academics, and I feel like that's kind of typical of these micro schools and educational centers. We really care about everything about the kid, like not just math and English and all the subjects. We teach conflict resolution skills, like restorative justice practices, where you really try to get to the bottom of it. You're trying to find out what is the real problem, and I think that's a good question to ask anybody that you are going to interview, like how do you handle conflict? Because if they, in a typical scenario, there's not enough adults around to really investigate what really happened. They just say, stop doing that. Or, no, 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 don't do that. And it's like, well, there was a reason why he did that, and what caused that, and what happened right before that, and what happened in the class before that, and what has happened 3 days before. There's like a history usually when someone really starts acting out, or they're super bored, one of the two, and that's also problematic. So that's a good thing to ask.
Question.
Yeah.
So you're actually speaking from experience.
Yes.
You run a homeschool recently?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Sorry, I said
You
that.
You teach conflict resolution skills. How do you do that?
So we have so first of all, when they do have any conflicts, we always have a meeting with both parties. We first be like separately, and then we find out kind of like their story, their side of the story, without anybody else in being involved. And then we try to see if they can talk to each other. I mean, we encourage that, but sometimes people feel just too upset at the time. So we're trying to like work with the parents, to talk to the kids, to try to see what's going on there. But we try to get them together to actually talk through the problem with us. So it takes a little bit of mediation skills to be there for them so that they can be heard without the other person interrupting or saying, no, 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 that's not what happened. It's like, okay, well, we have to give everybody a chance to say their part, and then you're going to say your part, and then we're going to talk about it. So it's, and then, of course, we also do have classes that are specifically, like we have a class called Wellbeing 101, which deals with time management, stress management, communication, conflict resolution. So we try to, really emphasize those things, but in every class. So even if we have a class that's happening and then there's some issue suddenly between two kids and it's very public, the issue is very public, we would just stop the class and very calmly say, do you want to tell us what happened? Just kind of talk through it. If we see that it's getting kind of heated, we might say okay, you know what, how about we talk about it after class and we get a little bit more sorted out. But if then they come back and we resolve it and it was a public issue, then we would actually talk in the class about it. And sometimes we do go into the classes and say, hey, I've heard, a lot of talking about this issue amongst maybe multiple kids, and I want to just kind of address that. So we just kind of do character building throughout, in every class. It's not just a separate thing. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay. You're welcome. What's this? Oh, yes. So high student motivation. So if somebody is actually asked their opinion, or, you're in the animal science class and they say the first day, so which animals do you guys want to learn about? That's going to have a very different feel than, okay, so here's the syllabus. We're learning about these animals. And you're like, oh, I know everything about elephants, and I don't care about tigers. It's like a different feel, and so the students are more motivated to participate if they actually have a say in everything. So we don't have a completely democratic situation like in Acton Academies. But when in our class, in every class, the teacher adjusts to the students. Provide customized learning environments for different learning styles and student needs. Like I mentioned earlier, the public school really can't, with the amount of people that they have, the teachers, individualize enough. There's no way that they really, I don't know how they would. I honestly don't know how. I can just imagine public school teachers. I've met many of them who've left, and they're just like, I couldn't do it any longer. It's crazy. We actually have a teacher, and she's just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing because I get to be creative. I can actually implement the stuff that I think the students need. And, if I see they're not learning one way, I could try something else. I don't have to just focus on the tests. Students get to socialize, make lifelong friends, work in teams, go on social excursions and field trips, enjoy playtime together, plus provide things like homeschool prom, sports, graduations, all those things that people are worried about. These learning centers are doing, and micro schools. Sometimes the micro schools are very small, like maybe 5 kids or something, and they might not have the resources to do this on their own. But if you have a few together, they might be able to pull it together and do one together. But the homeschool centers, like the one that that I started, right now we serve about 500 kids total between the locations that we have, and so there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of teachers and a lot of parents that want to help. And we're still part of bigger, like, homeschool communities on Facebook and stuff. So, like, they have some other people organize father-daughter dances, and mother or whatever, go to the tea party with the girl or something. Like, they do all kinds of activities like that. And that's just a co-op, kind of like a loose co-op on Facebook. Everybody does a little something, and then you're busy all day long. So you're not really homeschooling. You're never home. So many centers provide guidance for curriculum and things homeschool related. That's also something that we do if someone has a question when they're new and they're really kind of stressing about, like, I don't know what to do. We try to help them, pick some curriculum. Of course, they can just totally disregard what we say, luckily. We also provide academic coaching, college coaching, homeschool coaching. So first of all, someone's trying to start homeschooling, they don't know what to do, where to begin. We have courses, and we also just provide a lot of free information meetings and things like that. Academic coaching.
Are those programs that you wrote yourself?
Yes. Yeah, or some of my teachers. Like the academic coaching person, she has a doctorate in psychology, and she's the one who runs she does the well-being 101 class. So she does academic coaching. If someone's like, my kid isn't getting through his curriculum, can someone just help? I don't want to be the nag. Can you just check in with him every week? Then she comes in and she just checks in, and he's super happy to, talk to this person instead of his mom. I find that it's a lot of the time homeschool teenage boys. They don't want to be bothered by the mom constantly nagging them about something. All right, and college coaching is, of course, that's important. We have small class sizes, and I have not heard of anybody doing any more than 12 ever in the micro school type movement. Usually it's even smaller than that. So it makes a huge difference. You can actually know what the kids know. It's teaching life skills like cooking, public speaking, coding, music, chess, robotics, fashion design, sewing. We have like very interesting classes. We even teach high school classes. Our center goes from ages 4 through 18. And high school classes, we often have them doing concurrent enrollment at the colleges. So we have support classes that help them through their first few.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a second.
Yeah, go ahead, talk.
So my name is Michelle Sharon, and I run the Homeschool Academy. We have 16 families and 30 kids so far for next year.
Okay.
And we're a hybrid micro school a la carte classroom. Do you offer like any mentorship?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's talk.
Is it on a website or like?
No, actually, I'm in the process of making video to do that with, but right now it's just like one-on-one. So if someone has questions, they just ask me. So call me up or send me an email or something.
Say the name of it. I missed that.
Yeah, sorry. I said it way at the beginning. It's Learn Beyond the Book.
And that's the name of your center as well?
Yes.
We're off the page.
Oh, I get Learn Beyond the Books. Well, the funniest one was Dancing with the Books. I was like, okay, I might change my name. That's a really good one. That's really cool. Yeah, so for the high schoolers, we try to help them through their first community college classes, and that's supposed to also get them ready to transfer. So that's really like an awesome service because my own kids used it. I started it for my own kids because my daughter went on campus for her first class at the college. Her brothers used to go, but they were always together. They always look older than they were. So here's the girl, very pretty girl, going to college. She goes to dance class. She comes back the second week. She's like, I'm not doing those moves they want me to do. I was like, good for you. Come, get out of there. And then we thought, okay, well, we're just going to do online. That's safer. Oh, gosh, so boring. And I had to kind of like help her through like the history of cinema. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this again. This is not fun. There's like I'm always happy that I had my first degree in South Africa where you don't have any general ed. You did that in high school, you go to college for 3 years, you do your major, and you're done. And so I was like, oh gosh, if I had to go all this, I'm like, oh. So anyway, then we started this current enrollment program where the kids enroll in an online class, but they have their friends in a class with them, with one of our teachers, and they kind of go through the course together. So every week they work on the assignments. Sometimes they even split up some of the reading so the students all don't have to read all of it. They summarize it for each other and then share it, and then they do the discussions, and then they have to write the essays. So yeah, everybody who's taken it has been very happy with that. We have classes and events for parents sometimes too. We have private tutoring, we have music lessons, and we group kids by ability level, not grade level. We don't have any grades. We usually have them in groups like 5 to 8 year olds are usually together, 9 to 12 year olds, and then 12 and up. Sometimes high school is separate. And sometimes it's something like 10 and up or 8 and up, depending on the class. So it's kind of like the classes are a la carte, so you kind of just pick and choose. I always say it's kind of like a community college for kids. So you basically sign up for whatever you want. You can come all day, you can come once a week, you don't, just whatever you think is best for your family. So the kids, especially when they do a math class, we do a placement test to see what level they're at. And we do the levels kind of like math you see. We do place value and, beginning, number sense and all that stuff in level 1. Then addition and subtraction in level 2, multiplication, division. Then decimals, percents, and fractions is its own level. And then we go into integers and pre-algebra. So it's kind of like you have to be at the level. We don't care what age you are. So if the kid is really old and then they really are struggling with addition and subtraction still, then sometimes we suggest they do tutoring instead, because sometimes they feel kind of like, well, I'm with the little kids. I must be not very smart at math. But that's not true. It's you just haven't learned it yet. Or someone hasn't taught it in a way that you understand it. I'm completely convinced that everybody can learn math. You just have to take every step. You can't jump 5 steps or try to teach to where the kid's supposed to be. Like, oh, well, you're in this grade, so you must be doing this. No, it's not true. And the same with English. So we also have like a system of reading, like different levels of reading. And so we tell, and then once you go into a class, the teacher kind of checks it out. The first week or 2 is kind of a trial for everybody, where we might say like, yeah, really, this is not the right level. You should try this level. Now, sometimes the time doesn't work for them or something. So then often they do like individualized tutoring, but most of the time homeschool families are pretty, they have a lot of ways like to maneuver their schedule, but sometimes they're really busy. So they're too busy to switch. Siblings can sometimes even be in the same class, but sometimes people are like, no, they need a break. We're putting them in separate classes. So I was always happy when I got to the point where I had 2 classes for the same age range, that I could, like have different kids do different things that they're interested in, rather than just, well, there's only this class, so you're going to have to take it or not take it. In certain states, you can pay for some of this tuition with state funding. As you probably know, in California, we have a charter school system that's like a homeschool charter school. So it's different than the site-based ones. And some of the site-based ones even have a homeschool program also. So they give funding to the students, a budget of like about $3,500 a year. And then they can, we're an approved vendor, so they can pay for the classes with the funding. In a lot of new states now, we have the ESAs that you can hear everybody talk about, which is very exciting. Sometimes with a little strings attached. Sometimes they require you to be accredited. They have all these rules. We're not accredited. We're not even an official school. We're like a group tutoring center is what I'm like. If someone's like, well, we don't get what you do, like, well, small group tutoring basically is what we do, like groups of 12 or smaller in different subjects. So basically we can be a vendor because we're not a private school. If we're a private school, we can't be a vendor because they're public. So it's very weird because we're still private. I don't get all the rules, but anyway, that's how it works there. So depending on your state, like I think you might have all been hearing about EdChoice. That's a great organization that have a great website that tells you all about the state that you're in and what's available there. And like which states have, like you hear people say, like, I think Mike said this morning, 40 states have some form of tax credit or something. I was like, what? 40? Like where? I don't know which ones he's referring to because I think there's some tax credit ones that I'm not even aware of. But the most well-known ones that are the easiest to become a vendor for is Arizona and West Virginia and New Hampshire and Utah is just starting. So those are the ones we're vendors for already, and I've been looking into the other ones, but some of them require you to be accredited, so there's no way we can get accredited if we're not even a school. Homeschool parents spend less time prepping for classes because, they can drop them off and get something done. And a lot of people spend their charter school money to cover the core classes, math, English, science, and social studies, and PE sometimes, because we provide like a Google Classroom that's linked to each class, and so we tell them what we're going to cover roughly, and so they can give that to the charter school teacher, and they of course do something in the class, so they have samples already ready to hand over because you have to do that as well. So every month they have to supply a sample, so they'll have plenty to pick from. And the samples could be pictures, it could be all kinds of different formats. It doesn't have to always be a worksheet, at least for these charter schools that I'm talking about. So the homeschool parents are super happy. But then some of them are like, no. We'll do the core stuff at home. We'll just do, Khan Academy or something, and then we'll do the fun stuff with you guys. And then some people do a mix. So it just depends. And we try to mix the classes, kind of like we have a Minecraft history through Minecraft class. So if the kids really into technology in Minecraft, they learn history and they do Minecraft at the same time. So we often mix things in. That's kind of like not core, but you mix it in with the core class. So many kids call us a school. You probably have that. If you run any kind of homeschool resource center, you probably have that same thing where they call you a school, but you're not actually a school. But I feel like we really provide the best of traditional school and the best of homeschool kind of together, because you have the option to drop your kid off, all this fun stuff that the parents like, and then you have all the fun stuff for the kids and all the special events and all the proms and the graduations and things. So I do feel like it fills a huge void that's in the educational market. Any cons or pitfalls at these resource centers? They cost money. Like I said, you can use the funding for some of them, and then aligning the culture of the center with your philosophy. Some are totally secular, some are Christian, some might be Muslim, some, you can have literally all varieties. What we have is like, our curriculum is secular, but we have literally everybody. There's like, there's probably somebody from every religion that come, every color, any orientation of any kind. We don't go into any of it. We don't discuss it, like, in a specific like class or anything. But everybody's welcome to come, and they know that the rule is you have to respect whatever everybody else is, and we're not engaging in controversial topics. This is an area where we just are here to learn about whatever you're signed up for. And I know that there are places that do engage, and they do actually offer classes for specific things. And honestly, I just feel like I want it to be a safe space for everybody to learn, and I don't want to deal with all that. So I don't do it. But that's the beauty of it, is like you can make the rules for your own center. whatever you think is the best. Challenges and managing a resource center. So I wanted to go through this for anybody who's trying to start one, because it might help you, just think through some things. First thing, financially inaccessible to many, especially if they're leaving free private school, public school, sorry. Oh, private school's never free. Free public school, then suddenly they have to pay. And, no matter how much you cut the cost or try to get things donated or get funding or whatever, it's still not going to be enough. You're going to have to charge money. So sometimes people can't afford it. Trying to keep it affordable. Dealing with charter schools, the grants, the bureaucracies that you have to deal with to get the funding. If you don't have funding already, just, you don't independently rich and can just sponsor everybody, you have to deal with filling out all those forms. And, I wish there was an AI already that just filled out every form for me. That would be really helpful. And then finding affordable teachers that are similar to you in education philosophy. Because you can't just go out and, people contact me and I'm always open to talk to them, but you have to be mindful of the fact that they might not quite be on the same wavelength. And I always feel like it takes a lot of questions to kind of get behind what everybody is, what their philosophy is. But there is a good chance that as soon as you meet them, you're going to have a feeling about or mm-mm. Because then you can ask more questions. But if somebody strikes you as this person will be a good teacher, there's a certain personality that is exciting and engaging and really cares about kids. And I don't know, I've been trying so hard to distill it to how I feel. I can explain it to someone else because it's something that I feel like it's the secret sauce of our center, because everybody there feels that it's the place where they belong. The parents and the kids, and the teachers, and sometimes they sort of self-select out if they don't have the same philosophy. They kind of just, the family just doesn't come back. Or they even drop the class the first 2 weeks. So it's so important to guard that vibe that you are trying to attract. And so that's one challenge, is to find these people and then have enough money to pay them. Finding site managers, okay, so that's not always an issue for micro schools, because if you're really small, you don't need a site manager. You're the person and you're everything. But we have 3 locations, and, it's there has to be a person there. That's even harder to find than a teacher, honestly, because they have to be a certain kind of personality. For me, they have to be not too strict, but strict enough so that the kids don't, just everybody breaks a bone every day, but there's a boundary, but they are relating to the kids, and that's hard to find. And someone that agrees with your educational philosophy again, and then how they're going to implement it. So that's a tricky thing. So really think about what you want it to feel like before you pick that person.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I've been toying with the idea of having a site manager, and we're so bare bones cost. We're not the lowest, which I know is good to not be the lowest.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what do you guys charge? Do you charge per class? Do you charge per student? May I ask?
We charge per class. Yeah, I can tell you. This is, of course, California prices, so keep that in mind. But it's 16 weeks. I have to say that first, because people see a price and they just go oh, that's so expensive. But okay, 16 weeks. Every class is 1 hour and 20 minutes. And so for that, it's usually around $4.49 to $4.99, depending on how much materials the class takes. Like the cooking classes would be $4.99 for the whole semester. So it's one fee. There's no extra materials, registrations. I can't stand that when they're hide all these costs, and you're oh, that's not bad. And then you get to the end of it, and you're oh, and then you're already so far into it. I mean, I know it's a strategy, but I just can't stand it. when they do that to me, so I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, totally. It seems like the car salesman is trying to sell you the car that's not that great. So, yeah, so that's roughly what we charge.
Do you, and I'm just asking as well, so we
Yeah.
charge 300 per
Okay.
student per semester.
Okay.
And we meet twice a week for an hour and a half, so that's a nice segue. And then, so how do you teach and make money? Are you the administrator? I'm just curious.
Oh, I used to teach a lot in the beginning, but then as it grew, like the administration part became way bigger, and I'm originally an accountant, so my original, I just have like an organizing mind, and like the administrative side is very good for my skills. I also love developing curriculum and helping teachers brainstorm on the curriculum part. So if I had to pick the jobs, that I want to do, is connecting with the parents and doing the administration part, making sure that the money, that the invoicing that's going out is actually accurate, because that's another problem that happens a lot in homeschool co-op or resource centers. Oh, and the payments are posted, things like that. So I do mostly administrative stuff right now.
Okay.
But
Do you take a portion of the class
Yes,
fee? Okay.
yes, I
So
do.
we charge a registration fee, we charge a student fee. Registration is mine, the student fee is training.
Okay.
If they take a science fee, then they get a lab fee. That's it. And
Okay.
I'm trying to navigate how to bring a site manager in there, because that's very,
Oh.
not a lot of money.
I'm telling you, this last semester, I was like, I cannot do this again. We had a real big increase in one location, and the site managers were like, oh my gosh, there are just so many little kids here, we need more people. So I got some of the other side, like there's multiple site managers, and I got some to come multiple days, and suddenly I was like, oh, okay, I should have thought that a little bit longer about that, because each one is getting paid, per hour, and then there's no income in the sense of like, they're not bringing any income in terms of classes. So next semester I used to do this more, and then I thought, okay, well, I already know these people, and so I'm gonna put them in there, and then I was, oh wait, it's a little bit too much. So I do a lot of parents, but again, I'm very picky with which parents I ask to help us out, like say at lunch. So just for a short time, so I don't have to pay them for 4 hours, because you can't expect someone to come for 30 minutes, So you have to like kind of, you have to say, okay, well, can you help us out for Monday mornings? So that's 4 hours. Well, the parent doesn't have to do it for 4 hours. They're just bringing their kids and picking their kids back up. So they're only there for that one little short amount of time, so you can ask them to cover the lunch for you for a little discount on their class, rather than hiring a whole separate site manager for 4 hours. So maybe you'll take like an hour or 30 minutes, So, but I have to say this again, because I have had parents even ask me, are you hiring? How do I get to work here? And I've seen them with their own kids. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I never want them near the kids that are here. And it might be a small thing. It's not even like they're bad people or bad parents necessarily. They don't treat the kids the way I would treat them. And if I can't trust that the site manager or the parents are going to treat them the way I would, with the same kind of respect, then I don't want them near the kids. I mean, it's like, I'm very picky. Yeah, but maybe some people aren't as picky as I am, but that's big. It's a big thing to me that they're representing me technically, because I'm not there. Did you have a question?
Yes, we run into the same issue with finding people that have really bought into the vision of the school, and so it's hard because we set the rules.
Yeah.
So then they go, Kenisha, you made these rules. I said, yes, but be flexible and love on the kids and be gentle too.
Yes.
I can't do both.
I
was like,
know.
okay, so it's tough to find, but I think we
is.
finally hit the sweet spot. But my question is, we've also tried to bring our parents in
Yeah.
because they've already bought in, but how do you handle conflict with a parent that is allowed to be there? Because we run into a parent we hired very part-time and their child's a problem, or something happens, and
Oh.
we're like, we gotta break this, and then
Yes.
they get upset, and the kids, how do you get, have you had that?
Oh, I have had that. I've had that once, and then after that, I was like, I will never hire someone again who has a kid in the program. Like hire. I'm not talking about like volunteer for like in the 30 minutes. If I have a person who's volunteering for 30 minutes and I find that they are doing something that I really don't like, I've never had it where someone just suddenly starts screaming at the kids or something crazy, but just even the slightest sense of talking down to them or something, I'm like, okay, you know what? Thank you so much for helping us. I don't think we need you, actually. It's not as busy as we thought. It's all good. Thank you. You don't have to stay anymore. And then I might find somebody else later on if I really still need someone. But as the semester goes along, it actually calms down anyway. So usually I actually don't need them anymore. But that's kind of what I've done. I mean, if they actually did something, I would address it. Like that would not just go like by the wayside. But if it's a very small personality thing that I'm like, okay, me saying something isn't going to change how this person's going to be, and I just don't want them around the kids, then I would probably just tell them, like, thank you so much, but we don't need you anymore. But that's just how I do it. But I've had one person that was my side manager. Her kids were in the program. Initially, they really liked it, and then suddenly they were not really liking it, and then they didn't want to go to classes, and they started acting out in the classes, and then the parents started being like kind of a problematic situation there. So I was like, okay, I'll never do that again. That's not. So my main group of parents that I would ask is retired veteran homeschool moms, because and then ask them a lot of questions about their educational philosophy. Like I lean a little to the unschooling side, but not completely. But people who have unschooled their kids kind of have a feel for how kids are. But also, they could be, I don't know. I mean, it's just me. Like, I do want someone with some boundaries, and some unschoolers have way less than I'm comfortable with. So it kind of depends on you, like what you want, like a kind of a duplicate of you there. Sorry. So yeah, that's my trick.
I'm sorry, this might be a little off track.
No.
I feel kind of ignorant. I'm very new
Oh
on
no,
this.
that's
and
what.
I keep hearing the term unschooling, but I don't really know exactly
Oh.
what that means.
Well, that's almost like hybrid school, micro school, like all these terms. Unschooling is a range from here to here.
Okay.
Like you have some people unschooled that literally do no academics at all. Their kids could potentially be playing video games all day, and they're totally fine with that. So that's one side. Okay, and then on the other extreme is what I call self-directed learning, which is unschooling sort of, but you are giving them structure, and you are providing them with tools to be able to pursue the things they're interested in. But there's also everything in between. So there are some micro schools. Well, kind of like, I don't know, did you guys go to Acton Academy yesterday? Or I don't know if you've gone to it. So they're a lot more unschooly than we are. They have a totally different system, which I love. But I'm just like, okay, I'm not sure about this and that, and So,
but there's some good
yeah, it's like great. So you can take, that's the thing, that's the beauty. You can pick and choose. It's like homeschooling. I say people always end up eclectic by the end of it. They start out here, they go here, then there, and they pick a little bit of everything. Yeah, so unschooling is a huge range, so I'm not surprised you're confused. It's, but I mean, unschooling technically is self-directed education. The kid leads the way. So you're not doing school. So I think that's, if anybody else has a different definition, I'm happy to hear. That's how I understand it, at least. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess sometimes unschooling can be temporary. You almost have
Yes.
to because maybe the child is really struggling
Yes.
with, learning in like a public, or just in a
Yes.
more structured school.
Yes.
And they shut down.
Yeah. And there's also something called deschooling, which is when they're coming out of public school, there's a certain amount of time, I think people say a month for every year they were in school, where you don't do anything. You just let them be for a minute. Yes, deprogram, but they can totally explore anything they want. So that's kind of temporary unschooling too, where you just don't really do a whole lot for a little while. this is pretty much my last slide, so I'm going to go really fast and see if there's anything else that maybe someone else has a question about. Oh yeah, quality classes without micromanaging, that's also challenging because the teachers have freedom over what they design. And so to pick teachers that you can trust that they're actually doing a good job and not just like having to sit in every class every week to just check that they are doing a good job. So that's challenging too. Managing parent expectations and facilitating parent paradigm shifts. You know, the paradigm shift I talked about earlier where we kind of have to relearn what learning even is. There's a lot of parents, I mean, we all went, most of us probably went to public school, and we're so indoctrinated and we're kind of coming out of it, but there's a lot of parents who they've heard about it, they're not completely sure about it, they have a lot of questions. We do learning records, like I explained on Google Classroom. For the parents, that takes a lot of time to set all that up too. Ensuring safe locations and spaces and permits and all the locations is a big pain. I'm always so happy if I find one that works. Overheads like insurance, payroll tax. In California, you have to put people on your payroll if they're an integral part of your business. So if you're teaching for me, you're an integral part of my business, you have to be on payroll, and then you have to pay payroll tax and stuff. Scheduling classes, especially in person with limited amount of rooms. So you have, like one location is kind of overflowing, so trying to fit everybody in there at the right times. You only see the kids. We only see the kids once a week. Some of you have programs where you come multiple times a week, and I kind of envy it and sometimes play around with the thought in my brain because it's hard. You can't always get enough repetition of, like, say, math, for example, and the parents expect you to be a magician in that hour and 20 minutes and fix every math problem that ever existed. Deciding which students' special needs can sustainably be accommodated. We get a lot of special needs students. Obviously, that's why they leave public school, because it's not working, and they have different levels. Sometimes, because our classes are so interactive and so small, you can't even tell that they have any diagnoses. But sometimes you can, and sometimes it's too much for us to handle. Like, we're not trained, none of our teachers are special ed teachers, and my hardest thing is to find, I just keep talking to everybody that tells me they have autism center or something. I'm like, please open one in LA. I have people to send you, and I feel terrible to tell someone it's really not working for the kid or for the teacher or for the other kids, because it's too disruptive and we can't do what we were planning to do. But it's like, that's the worst part for me. I really hate that. Okay, and last, conflict situations, we talked about that. Time to take care of everything. That's the biggest problem for me. So you have to learn when to outsource things, you know. But you don't always have the money to outsource it. So like HR, my gosh, if I get enough money, it's the first thing to go. I am so sick of all those forms that they send me. But I have to do it right now because I can't afford to pay an HR person full time. So, all right. This is just a few websites. And I'm planning to send this to you guys also. Hopefully it will get to you. These are some organizations that show you a map of all the different micro schools and things in your area, so you can find things there. This is our website, learnbeyondthebook.com, if you want to check it out. I'm going to be very quick. The biggest thing that we've started doing more recently is custom designing classes for micro schools. So say you want to teach coding, but you don't have anybody that you know that's a coder. So you want to find a teacher, but you don't know where to even look. Well, we already have a teacher, and we already do Zoom classes. So what you could do, potentially, is project the teacher on the wall, have your kids in the class with another teacher that's just there to make sure their computers work and stuff. And they learn from this teacher, and it's interactive. They can talk to him. They can ask him questions. So that's, and we can make it at a time that works for you, and, you know. So that's our newest thing. We do private tutoring, like I said, music lessons. We have media and resources tab, which I think you might enjoy. There's one video that I made actually for my capstone for my master's program that was 8 homeschool graduates that I've interviewed and talked about like what they do now and so forth. Oh, and there goes my computer. And so I saw the light was on. And I'm like, oh. But that was like the media page is kind of fun. There's like some interesting interviews and stuff. But I like the documentary the most, like on there right now. I'm making a second one. I'm going to try to focus on parents who've been homeschooled who are now homeschooling their kids. I have one family like that, and I knew a few others. So I'm like, okay, that's my next one. Okay, I think I'm already out of time. Do you guys have questions? I thought it would be quicker. Anybody else? Yeah, it'll come. Yes.
I just want to share something.
Yes, please.
So we started a program very, very similar to what you described.
Okay.
Our, YMCA in our area about 3 years ago, and we've grown from 17 kids to we'll probably have over 300 next year. And we were able to bypass a lot of the stuff you just listed because we were already part of a nonprofit organization that can do the HR and the payroll.
Oh, what are the names? What is
A
the
lot of that, like administrative,
Yeah.
like infrastructure stuff was already kind of taken care of. They've already really got like great trainings for how to work with kids. So we run through the YMCA. Yes. So like I just wanted to suggest maybe if you like are just getting started, like maybe there's an organization near you that's like already Boys and Girls Clubs, like all of those places that run after school stuff, they have the infrastructure already if they've got the people who want to do the daytime stuff. And now that there's lots of teachers not in schools anymore, because they're homeschooling their own kids or whatever, we've not had any trouble hiring. We've probably got 30 staff now. We're running over 100 classes.
Do you get paid through the Y?
Yeah, everybody's a Y employee.
Okay. So do they like have any? I've always like thought about it, and then I'm like, I don't want them to get in my business and tell me what to do. Have you had any issues with them telling you like kind of what to do?
We started from the beginning. I was a veteran school teacher who is now homeschooling my own kids, and they let me basically create the program however I wanted. And so it's been
Awesome.
a very situation.
That's
I
great.
don't know that it would be like that everywhere, but they have a very like diverse student-focused philosophy anyway. So
Nice.
they're aligned already pretty
Oh, that's
So it's
amazing.
Not necessarily the Y, maybe the Y. Feel free to like.
Yeah. Our Y
But
closed
just
down.
As an idea, if that's a really big barrier, like being able to partner with somebody local. Where are you located? We're very lucky where we are that we have a building that shares a YMCA building with a church building, and so we use the church building during
Perfect.
the week, and we have we can run 15 classes at a time.
Oh, that's nice.
We're in North Carolina. Okay, what's your program's name? I'm at the Northwest Cary Y. It's called the Homeschool Hub. The Homeschool Hub. Yeah.
Where in
Anyway,
North
sorry, I
Carolina?
didn't mean to, like, sidetrack. I just
No, that's really
That
helpful.
might be an option
That's
if
super
some of
helpful.
that stuff is really overwhelming.
Where are you? Where in North Carolina are
We're
you?
in Cary.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Piedmont, like in the middle, but we kind of
Oh,
pulled
perfect.
from pretty broad.
Yeah, that's
Figure out how we
amazing.
can start new locations and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So I would like to add to that.
Yeah.
One of the things we're working on is going on to Fort Jackson. Fort Jackson, if you're military affiliated, there's a lot of these posts that have abandoned buildings.
Oh, wow.
They're just not
Nice.
using. You can use their swimming pools, you can use their track, you can use these things. We're now using the golf course for PAC, and I'm going in because I'm going to be looking for a building to move us from the north.
Wow.
To have a second site.
Do you have to have a link to the military? Do you have to be?
Because then you can
Okay.
go in. So
Yeah.
if you have families that are military,
Mm.
start there.
Oh, very interesting.
Closely mannered.
Yeah. So yeah.
You were talking about the classes that you offer being a la carte.
Yeah.
Do you see a benefit of that versus packages? Because we have options for our students to either do like core classes or enrichment classes, but it's
Okay.
a package deal. So it's for the entire year. Or,
Yeah.
there's 2 semesters, or but it's like these are the classes that you get to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a total of like 8 classes for the entire year for enrichment, and then the same with core. Is there a benefit to doing that?
I just like it because I guess I got really spoiled when I was homeschooling that I could do whatever I want. So if I say, for example, I wanted to go to your program, but there's like one of the classes that I want to take, I might be like, I don't really, I don't think I want to buy the whole package, or maybe I guess I won't just go to that class. But that seems like a waste of money. So I feel like it's just more like flexible. But it's really a matter of, I mean, your way, yeah, like your way is like basically you capture them and you capture more money that way. So that's beneficial. Yeah. But I mean, if you grew, that would be like a benefit. Like you would get a chunk of money for the whole thing. But if you're
Keeping teachers to it, like it's a.
that is very true. That's one of the challenges. I was going to get to that. Yes, and the teachers then start. The fact that we have multiple locations have made a huge difference in my teacher retention, because they could not make enough money before to even be part-time, really. I mean, some people still, they're like homeschool moms and they only have like a little part-time side job, and they might be there for 1 or 2 classes a week. So barely any. But some people are actually looking for a job. They actually want to make enough money to supply some money to their family, and so then they end up like, leaving because they're so. I can see that a program like yours, that would be the teacher at least knows for sure that they're going to be employed if you get enough people signed up. And I don't know, we have like a really low minimum still now. Like the higher classes can usually absorb some of the costs for the really low enrollment. So we usually run a class if there's 3 kids, but even if there's 2, we try to change it to like semi-private tutoring for a shorter amount of time, and the parents maybe pay like another $100, and then they're good. And if there's only 1 kid, we try to convert it to tutoring, which also helps the teachers and the kids, so then they still have it. But it's more expensive, of course, because you only have 1 kid paying the whole amount. So that's, yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. I feel like both have pros and cons.
Well, it kind of depends on whether the people that are coming
Yes,
for you to provide a program
exactly.
or a class.
I agree.
So,
I would ask the
somebody
parents.
who wants the a la carte thing is
Yeah.
building their own program, and I just don't know how to do music, so.
Yes.
asking for music.
Yes.
In your case, it would be more like, I don't know how to homeschool, just give me a curriculum.
Yeah, exactly. And they can, like our classes, they can take multiple in a row and make a day out of it, or take all the classes, but it's more like they have to kind of plan it out and play jigsaw puzzle. But yours is more like organized and. Yes, it's a lot like community college.
Maybe if you both.
Yeah, if you have enough people, you could do
It's more
both.
expensive.
Yes.
To get on part.
Yeah, it would definitely.
As always.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I would pull your parents, like if you have any way of asking them. I usually do a Google form survey every semester, halfway through the semester, like what's going well, what's not going well. Tell me anonymously. You're not going to ever be called out. I don't know, some people put their name in there, but that's not necessary. But then I ask them also for input for the next semester in that survey, because I already start planning basically halfway through the semester, start planning for the next one. So they give me valuable input. A lot of the time they'll suggest a class idea, or someone this time even sent like a resource that they're like, oh, if you guys could do a class like this. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. So it's really amazing. Like parents can be super helpful. Yeah, I would suggest that. Thank you for coming.